Welcome back to Droanacharya IAS YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Daman Benipal, and in this video lecture we'll be discussing about, we'll take a view on the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. This year, in the month of February, Russia started its invasion of Ukraine. And we can say that this invasion was a turning point in the history of, post Cold War era. Cold War era के बाद जो हमारा post Cold War era चल रहा है, it is a turning point in that. Many countries have condemned this military intervention by Russia. But this issue is not just that simple. So, in the age where there are competing narratives that who is right and who is wrong, when you talk about today's geopolitics, it is very complex to talk about, to give a narrative that who is right and who is wrong. So today we will take a step back. We will take a step back and we will try to analyze the whole contours of history behind this particular event. What is the background? How the history turned out that Russia invaded Ukraine? Here we will see how Russia evolved in the post-Cold War era. What were the major events there? We'll see that US and Russia's relationship soared, and that led to Ukraine crisis. Ukraine's eastern region was a region of tension, and were there any efforts made to bring any peace in the Ukraine's eastern region? And then, जो recent Ukraine crisis चल रहा है, what are the chances of using nuclear weapon in here? How the Western sanctions they impacted Russia's course of action? And then we'll also talk about India and Russia's relation after this crisis, and how Russia-Ukraine war impacted India-China relations as well. So, जो present Ukraine crisis है, we'll see that it has its root in the dissolution of USSR. तो आज हम एक step back लेंगे and we'll analyze this entire contour of history, and this lecture is part of the daily editorial analysis. Coming back to our topic, let's understand how Russia evolved in the post-Cold War era. See, Russia has changed a lot over 30 years. Fundamentally, काफ़ी changes आए हैं. It has opened up for the globalized world. It also produced a very open-minded middle class as well. But still, there are certain things which remain unchanged even in 200 years. And that all has to do with the geopolitics. Russia found itself restricted, especially when it comes to Ukraine. Because here, 1990s was a period of great trauma for Russian people, because in Russia, GDP fell like anything. The industrial growth plummeted. There was a deep debt Russia faced. There was secession, extremism, and terrorism as well. So the turnaround that Russia's President Putin, he brought about was to consolidate Russia politically, suppress terrorism there, and all sort of secessionist elements which are present there, and to modernize their economy. And even if we look at this, Russia was able to consolidate its financial position. Russia made efforts so that they can integrate with the outside world as well. Even here, US-Russia were in particularly good shape. Putin was the first world leader to call US President George Bush to convey his support after the attack of 9/11. Russia supported US for the forces in Afghanistan when US was fighting Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And non-proliferation, arms control, and even in the Iran, US was supported by Russia. Similarly, if we talk about European Union, there was a strong cooperation with the European Union and Russia as well. European Union became the largest trading partner for Russia. And even diplomatically as well, Russia engaged actively at United Nations. So along with that, it nurtured its relationship with India. They also improved their ties with China. All this happened 2000 onwards. There is a vibrant Twitter, Facebook, Telegram community in Russia. They have not banned social media. जैसे चाइना में सोशल मीडिया बैंड है, रशिया में सोशल मीडिया बैंड नहीं है. Putin also nurtured a new economic leadership. The main ministries are headed by extremely qualified professionals. All of them are aged between 40 to 50 years. And Russia today has a very far more complex and evolved political system, and that is normally understood by the outside world. It was all good in the post-Cold War era. But the US and Russia's relations started to soar up. The Americans, they argue that Russia took a turn towards being authoritarianism between 2000 and 2009, and they started pushing their policy in the neighborhood. On the other hand, Russia says that US was not willing to accept that Russia is an equal partner. So this was a time then when the relations became soured, and the first break in the relation came about over the invasion of Iraq, where Russia did not support US. इससे पहले जब अफगानिस्तान के ऊपर US ने एक्शन लिया था तब रशिया ने सपोर्ट किया था, लेकिन जब इराक में इन्वेजन की तब रशिया ने सपोर्ट नहीं किया. Here Russia was concerned about US unilateralism, particularly with respect of their existing arms control agreement. So the biggest bone of contention between Russia and US was the expansion of NATO. नॉर्थ अटलांटिक ट्रीटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की एक्सपेंशन को लेकर सबसे बड़ी कंटेंशन रशिया और यूएस के बीच में बनी हुई थी. रशिया फेल्ट दैट यूएस वाज फ्लैटरिंग ऑन इट्स कमिटमेंट एट द एंड ऑफ द कोल्ड वॉर, दैट वाज नॉट टू डिस्टेबलाइज द नेबरहुड. And whereas US and NATO countries, they felt that this is the right of a sovereign country which is been newly liberated in the Eastern Europe. They were liberated from the Warsaw Pact. Now they can decide their own destiny and they can join NATO. So there were 5 waves of NATO expansion in Europe, and to all which Russia objected to it. But over a period of time, it opposed NATO. But when Ukraine wanted to completely turn towards West and join NATO, then Russia turned aggressive. This was the reason. And coupled up with the tensions in the eastern Ukraine, between 2014 and 2021, Russia and Ukraine tried to find a modus vivendi, and this created a civil war situation in the Donbas area, the eastern Ukraine side. Even in 2015, there was an effort for mutual accommodation. इसके लिए Minsk agreement आया. Russia was prepared to deal with Ukraine as an independent sovereign country, but Russia wanted the Donbas region, which is Donetsk and Luhansk, with 80 to 90% people speaking Russian. कि भाई उनको प्रोविंशियल ऑटोनॉमी दो थ्रू अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट इन द यूक्रेनियन पार्लियामेंट. एंड देन रशिया गॉट द सेंस कि भाई यूक्रेन ऐसा नहीं करेगा, यूक्रेन इस एग्रीमेंट को इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं करेगा. एंड देन रशिया कंक्लूडेड कि इट इज़ नो लॉन्गर पॉसिबल टू डिफेंड इट्स इंटरेस्ट इन यूक्रेन, कि जिस तरह यूक्रेन नेटो कंट्रीज़ के साथ रिलेशनशिप सेटअप कर रहा है कि नहीं पॉसिबल हो पाएगा. सो विद रशियाज एग्रेशन, यूरोप ऑल्सो प्रैक्टिकली एक्सेप्टेड यूएस लीडरशिप. Even the neutral countries like Finland and Sweden are now seeking NATO's membership. And this was because of Russia's aggression. The neutral countries are also going towards NATO. And then to the question that what are the chances of using nuclear weapon in the recent Ukraine war. So see, we need to understand that Russia is saying from the beginning that it would use nuclear war only in circumstances where Russia's own existence was threatened. So Russia's position is of first use, which is again is also the position of NATO. India की position है no first use. India is more responsible and less liable for misinterpretation. But Russia is saying first use if our existence was threatened, and so is the position of NATO. So this becomes very risky in this time of crisis like the one which is going on in Ukraine right now. But still, if we analyze practically, the chances of using nuclear arms are minimal, because both the sides are very well aware of what horrendous consequences it can lead to. And then the Russia-Ukraine war also invited the Western sanctions. A lot of Western sanctions were applied on Russia. Now, if we talk about how the Western sanctions impacted Russia's course of action, so here EU and US both made miscalculation about their efficacy, about their sanction. The Russian Central Bank and the Russia's Finance Ministry, they took so many measures and they reintroduced macroeconomical stability in terms of their ruble. And they also ensured that there is availability of credit internally, despite there are so many Russian banks which are cut off out of SWIFT system. Russian Central Bank reserves in the major Western banks were confiscated. But still, Russia was able to maintain its financial position. Russia is a continental economy. It has a huge amount of commodity resources, agriculture, along with technological base. And plus, Russia also have a solid workforce. So over a period of time, Russia will recover. Despite Russia's economy is taking hit right now, but still keeping all this thing in mind, keeping that Russia is a continental economy in our mind, it gives the picture that Russia will recover. On contrary, the sanctions that have been made, they have impact in terms of energy on Europe. And this is impacting Europeans' politics. Because Europe was critically dependent upon Russia when it came to their coal, oil and gas. So, with these import restrictions, Russia turned off the Nord Stream. So, the energy gap which is being created in Europe, this is impacting the entire European politics. We have seen that British Prime Minister has resigned now. We discussed UK's economic crisis and you can follow up that in paper. Then there is also one perspective that how India and Russia's relationship have been after the math of this crisis. So see, we are continuously engaging with Russia and Russia is engaging with us. हमारे bilateral relations अभी भी continued हैं. हमारी जो प्राइवेट इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, जो गवर्नमेंट है, they were careful not to transgress the particular sanction जो कि बैंकिंग सेक्टर के ऊपर लगाई गई है. But we are taking advantage. Russia is giving us discounted oil and we are taking advantage of discounted oil for energy security in India. India has been consistent with its position on sovereignty, territorial integrity, diplomacy, dialogue. We've always said that. And India kept channels of communication open both with Russia and Ukraine. We participated in SCO meetings. Russia is a member. Shanghai Cooperation Organization meetings, India participated. Even some Western countries, they tend to fire from India's shoulder. But the true objective should be to get both sides to recognize that they should value to resolve these issues through dialogue. At present, this is not at all visible either in Europe or US. They are not looking for settlement till Russia is defeated militarily. And does this war and Russia-Ukraine war, it impacted India-China relations? So see, India depends largely on our resources and on our policy. China even knows that India is no pushover. India has a sensible process of engagement. So Russia-China relationship is complex. At the present moment, Russia needs China. Russian vulnerabilities are stressed in Ukraine, with NATO, breathing down their neck in that region. US have stretched its global arm to Europe. So right now China is at a very advantageously placed, एक triangular power play में China placed here. So I don't think there is any reason to see that Indo-Russian relationship will be affected by China's tactical accommodation with Russia or Russia's accommodation with China. And in terms of the immediate future, so Russia has clearly opted up for Entente. They have mobilized 300,000 troops there, and they clearly want a settlement on the battlefield. And it says that by the winter, the economic aspect will become bigger. Russian economy is becoming weaker. Europe is deciding what its pain threshold is when it comes to energy resources. So this winter is going to be critical for that. So now if somebody says that the present Ukraine crisis has roots in the dissolution of USSR, I think we can comment on that. So that is all for this video. आज की इस वीडियो के लिए इतना ही. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in my next one. Thank you.